It's been 9 or 10 years before my husband and I have felt like we could finally take a breath. And so we have decided from that time frame that you either become better from an experience or you become bitter. And so we have really tried to become better from it.
This episode of the AgEmerge podcast is a little different today. Normally, we're talking about the latest technology, innovative researchers, or soil health. Today, we're going to talk about health, but instead, we're talking about mental health. It really affects us as farmers and those in the ag industry. I have two wonderful guests that share from their heart of what's going on. But I ask you two things, and we're bringing this to you uninterrupted on purpose. The first thing is, please listen all the way to the end. Pay attention to what they have to say and the impacts that mental health can have and suicide can have on friends and family of farmers. But the second thing is, I ask you that you pick up the phone, talk to someone. You might not be in a mental health state that requires attention, but probably someone else is. This time of year during harvest, a lot of thoughts are going through the head. How are we going to pay for things? What does next year look like? What about these increasing input prices? Lots of things in a lonely, isolated combine cab. So I encourage you to pick up that phone, talk to a friend, see how they're doing. Just check in and come up with a buddy list that you check in with on a regular basis. So enjoy this episode, and I hope that you'll do those two things. Well, welcome everyone to this episode of the AgEmerge podcast. Today I'm joined by, first off, my veterinarian, Dr. Kim Stevens, and also with Liz Hulsizer. Welcome. I appreciate you guys taking time out of your busy schedules here to join us today.
Thank you for having us, Monty.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, this is a topic that we haven't really covered before on the podcast, but it really affects all of us in the rural communities. Farmers, dairymen, veterinarians, all unfortunately rank a little bit high in one category that we don't like to claim, and that category is unfortunately suicide. And while this is not a soil health or an ag tech topic, we love our farmers that make technology and soil health happen, and it's something that just doesn't get enough focus. And farming can be a lonely thing. It can be an overwhelming thing with lots of responsibilities and such. So we wanted to take some time and talk about that today. So, Kim, I'm going to ask you to lead us off a little bit. Tell us your story, where you're from, what you do, and how we know each other, and how we came to this topic.
Well, thank you, Monty. So I'm Kimberly Stevens. I am a veterinarian based out of Galva, Illinois. And actually, Galva, Illinois is my hometown, which when I was going through veterinary school, I did not think that I would end up back in my hometown, but God sure has a funny way of leading you where you don't think you need to be. So I studied dairy production in veterinary school. So my goal was to become a dairy veterinarian. When I graduated in 2010, dairy prices were pretty low at that point. And so the jobs were very few. And I had interviewed for a couple, I had had a job offer, and I took the job offer. And when I called my mentor, who was in Galva, and told her that I was taking a job as a dairy vet, unbeknownst to me, her plan for me was to come back to this practice. So, with a lot of prayer and a lot of discussion with the family, decided to go ahead and come back to Galva and not take that dairy position. And again, God just has a funny way of showing you where you need to be and not letting you be in control. So, came back to Galva. My family had beef cattle at that time, and we row crop as well. I joined the veterinary practice in 2010, and then in 2013, I had the opportunity to purchase the practice. The ironic part about when I purchased the practice is when my family decided to stop producing beef, and so
You lost a customer.
I lost a very good customer. But again, everything worked out good. I really enjoy, and in my little bit of off time that I have, I do enjoy running the combine for the family and helping out at the farm where possible.
And recently you took a big step in your business. You have a new practice building and are geared for, better service and really a long-term vision there. And we thank you because large animal veterinarians are very hard to find and unfortunately getting harder. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I appreciate that. One other thing we need to know about Dr. Stevens is her dad knows every time that she's been out to our farm because on our grass-fed beef, we don't have lots or corrals that they're in. So when we let them through the chute and come out, they all like to take a lick on her truck so her dad can tell that she's been to our place because her truck is covered with cow licks.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And I think I forgot to cover, Monty. You asked me how this connection became you and I. And I think you had just found me from my dairy passion and wanted a veterinarian that could palpate cows pretty good. So I pride myself on being able to determine a pregnancy and pretty accurately. And your wife will tell me if I'm a day off, but I'm okay with that.
yeah,
So
we have a little competition, folks. We write down the days that she says and we put them in a spreadsheet. We just see how close she is, and we have a little bet at the end of the year how close. We have one more to go, Kim. So I'll let you know what the final tally is. But in our
very good.
discussions one time when we were there, I believe, like you said, palpating, I don't know how it came up, but we talked about how much of a struggle is for the veterinarian community and with the suicide rate in veterinarians. And I had no clue about it. And, and you and um, Dr. Stevens doesn't mince words. She's right to the point. She's like, well, hey, look at this truck right here. It's loaded up with, 5 different ways. If I wanted to end it, I can do it right now. And I'm like, whoa, that's true. And she says it's a lonely place, but expand on that a little bit to kind of help folks understand the challenge and the group that you're working with within the veterinarian community.
Yeah, so there is an organization that was started in 2014 called Not One More Vet, and its acronym is NOV or NOMV. And they have a website, and we had a very prominent veterinarian. She was an animal behavioralist. Her name was Dr. Sophia Yin, and everybody thought she was on top of the world. So she had a great practice, she had a great following, she was on great website. She had wrote many books about it, about animal behavior. And we just thought she was living the high life, right? And so when she committed suicide in 2013, I believe, it just shook our industry that somebody as prominent as she is was struggling with the same thing that all of us struggle with every day. Um, and so this Not One More Vet kind of started, and they're working with vet schools now because, shockingly enough, 1 in 6 veterinarians consider suicide sometime in their career. And I'm part of that statistic that COVID was very hard on everybody, but during that COVID time, I had a lot of life changes. Anyways, I don't need to go into that big a detail, but I'm part of that statistic, and I'm glad that I'm on the other side of it now. But it's people like Liz and Matt and all of my like farm producers, they get the struggle with mental health because it is an isolating career. I am the only veterinarian in my practice, and so all of the weight of all of my clients and all of my patients falls on my shoulders. And I am one of those like type A people, and most veterinarians are type A, that we strive for perfection. And when a case doesn't go the way we want it to go, man, it just rips our heart out. And I don't know, people see memes on Facebook, my veterinarian dreams about your pets. Man, I dream about pets and cows and pigs and all that thing. And I just take that stress and carry that with me all the time. Now, I have tried to find solutions to help with that, but it can be very isolating, especially when you're practicing by yourself. So, and the social media attacks that can happen if cases don't go right and things. I mean, everybody always knows that social media is kind of out of control at some point. So, yeah.
Yeah, well, thanks for sharing that, and I'm glad that you were not one of the statistics because we need you, Doc. But thanks for sharing that. That's something that had crossed your mind, and That's a big thing for people to understand, that loneliness, isolation, and changes. People, like you said, with the vet that you started the organization as a result of, you'd have no idea. There's a person on the top of their game, and then it's just a shock and a surprise. So, yeah, let's dive into this a little bit further. So, Liz, I'd like to turn to you. And Kim got me connected here with Liz and her family. Tell us your story, your background, where you guys farm, and those kind of things, kind of to bring us up to speed with your family's situation.
Yeah, so one, I am beyond grateful that Kim's plans of being a dairy vet or a vet not from around here did not come to fruition, because she is our veterinarian for our small and large animals. And just to show how much we value her, I sit outside of Galesburg, Illinois, which is a 30,000 population city. And there are several veterinarian offices in Galesburg, and I drive past every single one of them and drive the 35 minutes to see Dr. Kim. And so she is a godsend for us, and we're just so appreciative for what she does. And so just kind of a background on me. My husband and I, we both grew up in the Knox County area. We are both from farming background families. We got married in 2012. And so from 2012, we started farming together. At the time, his dad had a farrow to finish operation. He was the farm manager for, and he worked on that. And then we also had probably about 50 head of cattle on pasture. And then we also background about 150 cattle a year for a sale barn where we background fed them out. So, and then we also did corn and beans. So from 2012, we got married. We were very young. We were in our 20s, 24, 25. And 13 months into our marriage, so October 11th, I believe it was, in 2013, my father-in-law committed suicide during harvest. And that pretty much put us onto a trajectory of everything being outside of our control, just like it is in farming now, but everything outside of our control happened on that day. And just kind of as a inside peek to it, when you have farrow to finish operation, you have cattle, that work doesn't stop. So from the moment that we discovered my father-in-law had committed suicide, it was actually in the feed mill shed of the hog operation. We had to wait for the body to be released. We had police, ambulance, fire trucks, and one of the things I was unaware of, I now know, unfortunately, too well, they actually separate you when this happens. They have to kind of investigate you to see if foul play was it happened or what. So pretty much from the moment the police arrived, my husband and I and my mother-in-law were separated from each other and interviewed, asking, where were you? What happened? What led up to this? All of these things. So you're thrown into a very weird situation. You're in shock, you're in grief, you're angry. A lot of things come through with it. By the time they did the interviews, released the body, you still had pigs that had to eat. So we had to get clearance to go back in there. And bless my husband's heart, we had to go into that same place that he had committed suicide in mere hours before and grind feed for the hogs. So yeah, it was a very tough time, hard time, but as farmers, you're still in charge of those animals. We still have to do what's best for them. And their day doesn't stop because we want ours to. And so we went on with our days. After that, then we had to start making calls to landlords because the rumors were going to get out, making sure that we could continue to farm some things. And so a lot of things that happen in a normal death are not that way in a suicide. So that harvest was very difficult, trying to manage the hogs, the cattle, the farm. We still had a crop to get out. We are beyond blessed in the area we live and the friends that showed up for us. they showed up in a big way. And because of them, we were able to get through. But it's been almost 12 years now. And I would say uh, it's probably been at least 9 or 10 years before we felt like we could breathe again, just from some of the issues that came about. So we do believe that part of the reason he committed suicide was he did get in too deep financially. Things that we were not aware of came to light within days of his passing. And so, like I said, it's been 9 or 10 years before my husband and I have felt like we could finally take a breath. Um, and so we have decided from that time frame that you either become better from an experience or you become bitter. And so we have really tried to become better from it. We are not perfect in that. And there's definitely days where we struggle still for what has happened. But we've just kind of made it our purpose in this to spread the news and the word about getting help and finding ways to make mental health more of an acceptable topic to talk about and try and prevent what happened to us.
I think it's really hard for a person who's considering ending their life to think past themselves and the effect that they had. And like you said, you went through 9 to 10 years of just chaos trying to get everything, I'm sure, organized and restructured and those kind of things. It's just, how do we get there? How does a mind get there to not think about the impact, or not, it's not that they're not thinking about it, but how do we help people understand that that's just not the way to, it's what you're doing to the family, I guess, is, I'm sorry, I don't have a good way of putting the words together there, Liz, but how when you're talking to people, how do you talk to people about that?
I think it is hard because when you are in that spot, that dark spot, it is hard to see outside of those thoughts. Um, and I think what we do is more so of us talking about the actual suicide. We talk about this is what happened to us after. And I think sometimes, and I do not know what was going on in my father-in-law's mind when he made this decision. I do believe it was more of a financial issue and he felt like he couldn't get out of it. I know sometimes people will joke like, I'm worth more dead than alive because of life insurance, or you can sell the equipment or whatever. And that's just not true. Because one, even if you paid off all your debts, there's still a hole there, a spot missing at the table that you never get back. And when you deal with a suicide, my dad died a couple years later from cancer. And that grief process is so different. We were able to grieve, we were able to process and do all that. When it's suicide, there is no processing. The grief is different because you run the gamut of being angry at them. So angry. How could you choose to leave us? I remember being so mad thinking, my husband is awesome. Why would you want to leave him? Um, and then you feel guilty for being angry. And then the next minute you're really sad and then you're very stressed. And I, I know that sometimes people think we would be better off without them, but that's not true. We would much rather fight hand in hand to get out of whatever situation you think it is together than to do it alone. And I think that's why we share our story. It's not so much about his suicide and maybe what led up to it. It's ours is much more of this is what happens to the people you leave behind. And it is awful. I mean, it changed our trajectory 100%. We were married 13 years. We weren't able to have children because of the stress, the financial burden. We missed out on so much as newlyweds or just as younger people. I feel like we were in our 40s or 50s when we were in our 20s, just the stuff we were dealing with and the burdens we were experiencing. So it changed every ounce of who we are.
How about your mother-in-law?
Yeah, she moved from the farm. She didn't want to be there, and rightfully so. And she experienced the same run as we did. She would be extremely sad, and then the next minute very angry. And I would say through all of the years we've all hit it at different times. So there could be, even to this day, there could be a moment where we're just really mad. Like how you changed so much for us. You changed our lives. And so, she's had to do a lot of things on her own, and she said several times, I never thought I'd be this age having to do this on my own. And so yeah, it just really changes every outlook on life. And I will say, I said earlier, you want to be better, not bitter, but absolutely, there's times that we've all sat in a very bitter place about it.
Well, I really appreciate you sharing that, and that's important for people to know that range of emotions that you go through, and you can't not go through them. If someone makes that decision, that's everyone that loves you is going to go through that range of emotions. So what do we need to do ourselves? What are the outlooks we need to do ourselves as farmers and agribusinesses? Because let's face it, we've if you look at the University of Illinois farm doc data, the last 3 years farming has been loss on per acre. This year's looking to be worse, and at the moment, 2026 cropping looks to be even worser. That's such a word, but I think we've had some good times in agriculture, and we've grown, and farmers have made some commitments and maybe overcommitted a little bit. The pressure's on. What are some things that individuals need to think of and their loved ones in order to kind of help and identify and make sure people are getting the right help? Kim, I'll start with you on that.
Yeah. So, like I said, my family does farm as well, and I like to help out with that. And the farm consists of my uncle Raymond, my dad Kirk, and then my brother Kyle are the main ones on the farm. We lost my grandfather Dwayne um, a few years ago, but he was the main decision maker of our farm. And so when we lost him, it kind of skipped a generation. And so my dad and my uncle, while they're still involved in the decision making process, a lot of that stress kind of falls on my brother now. And he did not go to college, he went straight into farming. And all of his friends from high school did go to college and have careers outside of the ag, immediate ag world. And they live pretty far away, over an hour away. My brother still talks to them, but it's not like seeing your really close friends on a day-to-day basis. And so he has definitely developed a core group of farmers that they will message back and forth or Snapchat their struggles back and forth, just so that you can commiserate with other people that, yeah, I might have broke a drive shaft today, but we all have these problems. And so I do think that while social media has a bad spot, it also does help a little bit in making those connections that we do struggle. I will say on the veterinary side, man, I am having dinner with one of my veterinary friends, or at least talking on the phone with one of my veterinary friends at least once a week. And especially the vets that were by ourselves, I mean, we try to reach out to each other just to do a life check. How you doing? What's your struggle today? And we can't make that struggle go away, but just a listening ear and, yeah, hey, I had a really shitty client today too. Like, it does help to know that we're not in this boat alone. So
I think that's a good point. I have a group of farmer friends, and they're seems like they're all about a state away, so we can talk. And one of my friends, we've threatened to create another podcast called Two Farmers Bitching, because it's just kind of fun. call each other and complain about things and get stuff off our chest. And, especially with other farmers that farm like you, or, that are doing different things. It's good to have essentially an accountability partner would be the fancy word for that. Right. So, I found that helpful myself, and that's a really good thing.
Well, and
Liz, how
when you
about you? Oh, okay. Go ahead, Kim. I'm sorry.
no, that's fine. I had another thought, and I think everybody in the farming community knows this. That man, when you farm with family, there are gonna be struggles, and there are gonna be days where you're screaming at each other. But at the end of the day, I think it's important to walk away from the farm not upset with each other. And not that I'm married, but I've always heard, don't go to bed mad at your spouse. And I think that's true for the farm. Like there's going to be bad days on the farm. There's going to be days where you guys don't agree, but at the end of the day, you're still a team trying to reach the same darn goal. So don't leave the farm mad at night. Work it out before y'all leave. That way everybody gets a good sleep at night, because everybody knows that stress keeps you up at night. So I don't know. It's kind of what we try to do at the farm.
And if people are harvesting, it's one thing, but if they're working cattle, that's definitely another thing, isn't it? I mean, it
Hmm.
seems like that's why
Yeah.
they make those T-shirts. Never mind what I said while we were working cattle. But yeah, we're really good at hollering at our family and being the meanest towards the ones we love the most, huh?
Yeah. I'm wearing a shirt today
Yes.
that says, I love Jesus, but I cuss at cows.
Or my favorite beef label says humanely raised but occasionally verbally abused. So
Yes. Yes.
so yeah, Liz, well, how about you? What are things that we can do and to just help each other in this regard?
Yeah, I think one of the first things that the thing about farming, it's a different animal than any other business out there, and I'm sure some people would argue that it's not, but it is, because like Kim said, you're farming with your family, you might get in an argument, and then you might have to go to a birthday party that evening together. I don't have to do that with my coworkers. Like if we have a disagreement, I get a whole, 16, 18 hours before I have to see him again. And so it is such a complex issue, and it is difficult. And then when you pack on the fact that some of these farms, my husband and my both of our farms on both sides are fifth generation. So when you add that in, you're like, I'm a fifth generation farmer. You sit there and you think, okay, my great great grandpa went through the Great Depression and he made it. My grandpa went through the 80s and he made it. How can I be the one to lose it? And it's such an extra weight when you add that in, thinking that you're going to be the reason that it ends when it's a multi-generational, and it's just not fair, because no matter what, it's all relative. What they were going through in the Great Depression is relative compared to what is now, and some of it comes up on luck. You got lucky you didn't buy that farm, you got lucky that you did buy that farm and you could pay it. um, but I think we just have to take the pressure off that, yes, while it is a fifth generation farm, like we're in the here and now, and what makes sense for this farm in the here and now. One of the best things my husband and I did, and it was hard. It's absolutely hard. And I tell people all the time, we walked away from rented farm ground. It was too much. The pen to paper didn't work. And we finally realized, we're like, whatever we're making on this farm over here, that profit is just paying to make sure we can farm this. So we were saying, why would we farm more acres and break even as opposed to farm less acres and make a profit? And 12 years later, I have yet to regret walking away from some of those farms. So I think in these hard times, that's something we have to be doing, and just doing what you can to get through. The other thing that really got us through, kind of like Kim said, was having people around you to kind of commiserate with. And I think that's so important, because it's just like social media. You look on social media and it looks like everybody's just so happy and great and everything's wonderful. And you're sitting there thinking, like, man, my life's kind of a dumpster fire right now. Like, what am I doing wrong? And it's not. Everybody's life is a dumpster fire here and there. And so having people around you that you can say, look, I had a really bad day, and they're going to say, yeah, I did too. or they're going to say, I had one a couple weeks ago. And just realizing that all of these stresses that we're experiencing, the weight of this farming lifestyle, you're not the only one struggling. That is huge in knowing that you're not alone in this, that you're not the failure, that you're still doing what you can and you're not the failure because everybody is struggling right now. So, really, in my mind, one of the biggest things we all need to do is make it acceptable to talk to each other about it. We absolutely have to bring acceptability to talking about struggling. And kind of to your point, Monty, or having friends in other states, we joined a soybean association and made friends with people from Kentucky, Missouri, Tennessee, Ohio. And that kind of opened up another door for us where we have friends around here that we absolutely talk everything to, but we can talk to them states away about things that maybe you wouldn't give information to your neighbors about. That competition's no longer there, so you can tell them everything. And so making a team around you that you can talk to and talk through and just say, like, this sucks. I mean, the things that we all say to each other, it's pretty funny when you look back, just because it is, we're all like, I don't know why we're doing this. This is pretty tough. This is hard. But we have each other there to pull each other out and say, nope, you're doing the right thing. This is what you're meant to do. Keep on going. And so for me, like, those are all really good things. I think having also a team around you outside of friends. So having a really good fertilizer input supplier, having a seed dealer that you can go and talk to as well, having a lender that will sit and listen to you and not just look at the numbers. And so building a team around you, because the team that came around Matt and I after his dad died, I will never forget those people outside of our friendships, the businesses that came around us and helped us through it. And I think in a lot of cases, the best lender, the best input person are the people that are going to be honest with you or tell you no. Sometimes the best word you can have is no, and they're protecting you from something else. And so having really good relationships with those is to me a really big part of getting through this.
I'll share a little story about my time in California as a retailer, working directly with farmers, primarily dairymen. And I just remember at first, they hold you back a little bit. Yeah, you're the sales guy selling me something. But after you're working with somebody for 3-5 years, maybe 7 years, you just take on a whole new role with that person. And you kind of get on their unofficial board of directors, if you will, and on big decisions. And I remember one time I had a farmer who was looking at buying a large tract of land, and I helped him run the numbers and see what that'd be like, what the cash flow would be like, because it would have been a significant impact on him. And then, of course, that was in 07, Kim, and
Mm-hmm.
09 happened. We call it Dairy Armageddon in 2009. And, it was tight, and there was a lot of questions. And we were really, hey, this was the right thing to do. You gotta, it's tough, but it'll work through. And fortunately, it has, and they've done well. They've been through struggles and such, but had a lot of those conversations with people. And I think it's important that anyone who's listening to this works with, like Liz was saying, work with people who you can trust with more than just whatever you're buying from them. Can you trust them for good information or to bounce ideas off of? More of a partnership instead of the transactional approach. So I think that's a great thing that you said. One other thing that you both have talked about a lot is social media. On social media, everything's always great and grand. And I'll also admit something else here. I have this is a term I learned last winter. I have FOMO. Okay, fear of missing out. And Kim's going to laugh because she totally sees it, because we have beef, chicken, pork, and eggs, and now goats, and so we got all that stuff going on, and the non-GMO and the processing and the small grains and the cover crop seed, the seed business, and all this stuff. And we're looking at alley cropping and companion cropping and perennial cropping and all that. And it's like, I just can't get enough of all this stuff. Right. So I put myself into an unnecessary spot, and Robin is like, okay, enough's enough. We're tired here. We need to slow down. So I think that certainly is a unintended pressure that's entered right in the last 10 years that we didn't have before. Now, we always had the ego thing going on. We always had the pride thing going on, and your value as a farmer is the acres that you farm, and that's, well, look at me, I farm da da da, and for you, Liz, to give up rental acres, oh gosh, that's unheard of. That's in Western Illinois. That is an unforgivable sin, isn't it? So that's really interesting. And then you add on this generational pressure. Man, that it is just it's a powder keg waiting to explode at any moment. So kudos to you working through that and thinking about those things. So talk about how else do we help? How do we help farmers to what resources are out there for farmers or veterinarians? Talk more about, maybe Kim, more about your organization and the impact it's had within the veterinarian community with No More Vets.
Yeah, so there's a lot of different things, I guess, that they were doing. Like I said, they are going into veterinary schools now. When I went through vet
Yeah.
school, and that was 2007 to 2010, we didn't talk about this at all. Like, it was not a thing to think about work-life balance, and that you really need to find your group of people. Like, we were just in there doing our job, right? So we didn't talk about it. So this is really something that started in the last 10 years. Obviously, they have a social media presence. They're in their vet schools. Um, there is a call-in number that if you're having problems, you can call in. Merck Animal Health is actually a leading partner in the veterinary mental health side, so they have a well-being study that kind of focus in on why this is a problem, and how can we fix it. Um, and I think 1-800 numbers and griefs lines, there is a place for them. Because I do agree with Liz, when you're talking to somebody that's not in your immediate circle or not in your immediate area, maybe you are a little bit more open. I'll be honest, I have never reached out to one of those before, so I'm not exactly sure how they work. Maybe I should. I don't know. But the Not One More Vet also has, so Midwest Veterinary Supply has teamed up with Not One More Vet, and the cones of shame, that your animals wear, or like the cones after surgery, they have a special print that they put on these cones. So those are the cones that I have exclusively at my practice. And the cones have hearts and little paw prints on them. And so every time an animal comes out from surgery and then greets their parents, the parents always comment on the cute little cone that the animal is wearing. So that is my time that we get to share. This is why this cone is cute. These are the proceeds that it's going to. And a lot of my clients, like Monty, had no idea that this was an issue. So that's kind of one way that I share with my immediate practice and my clients that there is a problem, and thank you for helping. By supporting me, you're supporting this process.
So there are resources there that they can connect with Not One More Vet and such.
Mhm.
And then I see you got a client there behind Liz that's,
Mhm.
that's joining the podcast. So that's
Actually,
awesome.
the client's going to see Dr. Kim tomorrow, so.
Oh, okay. She heard Dr. Kim on the computer, so she was wondering
Yeah,
what was going on.
right.
But Liz, I know, I believe Deere and Company has done some things, Soybean Association,
Yeah.
other things where you can reach out. But how do you get people to do that, right? It's one thing to have the resource, but when you're so into yourself and in a dark place, what's something to help trigger people to make that call?
So, I'm so glad you asked about some of these resources, because there's one, I sit on a board, it's Farm Family Resource Initiative. And it is so fantastic what this is doing. It is one of the things in mental health. There's two things that I believe are the problem: accessibility and acceptability. Accessibility, what makes it hard to access these mental health services, whether it's medicine, seeing a counselor. On the farm, it's health insurance. My husband, we're blessed. I have an off the job farm, so we have health insurance, but a lot of families don't. And so health insurance can be a barrier to stop them. And so through the Farm Family Resource Initiative, they have a 24/7 confidential phone line that you call in. It's 1-833 FARM SOS. I'll repeat it later just to make sure everybody gets that down. But in that, they actually have, and this is what I love about it so much, it is not just a hotline. And props to anybody that uses the suicide hotline, any hotline out there. But this one is catered to Illinois agriculture. So it has people in it that are experienced and have knowledge of farming, of agriculture. So in the state of Illinois, if you're a farm family, if you work in ag, if you're a wife of a farmer, you can call this and get up to free 6 counseling sessions. And that is just so important. If you go online, I think Farm Bureau has Farm State of Mind. On there, they have all kinds of resources. You can select the state you live in, and then it'll drill down all of the resources available for you. So all those are great, but to your point, Monty, how do we get people to do this? Like, how do you do this? For me, one of the best barriers that I witnessed with my own husband was having counseling that you can do online. When COVID kind of opened up this, I mean, none of us are sitting together. We're all on video right now. He's able to sit in his tractor and speak with a counselor in a state that's more suited for what he's been through. So it is suited for someone that is a child of suicide, all of these types of things. And so we could find somebody in Virginia that's more suited for his needs, and he can do it in the tractor. So it takes down that barrier of, I don't have time. I can't take an hour to drive into town and an hour back and an hour there. Like, it broke that barrier of an excuse. And so that's been huge. When it comes to medicine, the biggest thing I tell people all the time is if you broke your arm, you would go and get it fixed. If you had my dad, he had cancer. He would have given anything to be able to spend $10 a month on a medicine that helped and fixed him. And so if medication is what is needed, we have those avenues to take care of an issue. So if you are suffering from anxiety or depression, there is no shame in it. You take care of a broken arm, you should take care of something wrong in your mind. We are very quick as a community to show up and help a farmer. If they have an accident, if they have a death, we should also be very quick to show up and say, hey, it's okay. I take medicine. We have extra anxiety medicine, like during harvest when things start to get a little heightened and prices are terrible and we're nervous. Just call in your doctor and say, look, I'm really struggling right now. I'm not thinking clearly, and I need to think clearly so I can work clearly during harvest. Getting that help, there's no shame in that. So I think the more that those of us that utilize these tools speak about it and take away some of that stigma, I think that's a huge step in the right direction. So again, it comes down to accessibility and acceptability, and it starts with each one of us.
I love that idea of the counseling sessions because of rather than pastor I had one time, he talked about, too often when people come to me for marriage counseling, he says it's like a tire. He says the tire's been running on no air for a long period of time. They show up with the tire on the rim and it's shredded, because they got a complete blowout. And they're like, please, pastor, help me fix this. He says if they would have come to me when the tire was leaking air a little bit, when it was earlier on, we could fix it. But they waited so long to get help in their marriage that it's just hard to repair. So I think that the counseling session, and especially like you said, a lot of farmers, we don't have health insurance, right? Because it's expensive, or we have very, affordable health insurance, we'll put it that way, that may not cover these kind of things. And so to get those counseling sessions to kind of correct course before we're too far off course, I think that's amazing. Are you aware of other resources in other states, or I'm sure there probably is. We'll make a list of those that we'll put on the show notes so people can contact those. If that's okay with you, Liz, I think that'd be a great resource.
Yes. Yeah, we're
And I,
fortunate. The state of Illinois has helped fund that. So the 6 free counseling sessions is for anyone in the state of Illinois if you're tied to agriculture. So even if you work for a fertilizer company and you're within ag, they are suited to help you through this.
I love the analogy that you said that when someone's sick or maybe passes away, and all the neighborhood shows up with 40, 60 combines and the trucks and everything. And, you see the videos there on social media, and everybody gets the warm, fuzzy feelings of how great that is that all the neighbors showed up for the final harvest there. We need to be doing that same thing while people are here with us that need help. Is we need to show up in the same way. I think that's a great
And
analogy
and
to
and Monty, to that point, one of the things that people have said is like, I don't want to go up to my neighbor and tell them I think there's something wrong with them. Like I'm too nervous. Like, what if they hate me or what if they get mad? And the one thing I say is, yes, there are ways you have to go about it tactfully, but if you realize that their farmstead is maybe less kept than it used to be, or they have pulled themselves away from organizations they maybe at one time were very social in, those are kind of some signs. And the thing that my husband and I have told people is, I would much rather have a very difficult conversation with you now and have you mad at me than having to tell your spouse in a funeral line, I'm sorry for your loss. And so it is uncomfortable. It's so uncomfortable, but having a
plus you're
conversation.
plus you're sitting there thinking, I knew I should have talked to them.
Mhm.
Then you carry that with you for a period of time too. So, and it could be as simple as checking in and, hey, how much rain did you get? And just starting a conversation that way. I mean, hey, farmers, we love to talk about weather. If you need an excuse to call somebody, call them because of that. Hey, what'd you get for rain? That always works. So, and you mentioned a little bit too the whole stigma of small towns. There's a running joke, in a small town, nobody uses a turn signal because everybody knows where you're going, right? So it's tough in a small town, even in your church, to share with elders or with the pastor because unfortunately gossip does its best work. One of the things that God doesn't like, unfortunately, but gossip does some of its best work in the local church or in local organizations of any kind. It's just tough to make that happen. So I appreciate those ideas of organizations that you're part of, friends that you might have that you can talk and you don't have to worry about things coming back to. What are some other helpful tips that we should share with people that are struggling? And if you aren't struggling yet, you may in the future, and it's good to head this off at the pass, because we are in tough times, and we'll continue to be in tougher times for the moment. But I think one thing that's important is your dollar signs don't determine your worth. I think as especially the male portion of the species tends to think their balance sheet equals their worth. Dollars are just dollars; they can be made again. What are other tips or mental health little tricks that you like to share with people? Either one of you.
I think one of the things that my husband and I have to remind her, we had that conversation last night. We were running break evens for next year, and it is looking a little rough. Um, and 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 we both just said, you know what, we're placed on this earth for a little bit of time, and if the farm isn't meant to be, and we hope and pray it is, but if that's not God's plan for us, our farm is not meant to be. It's not going to be because of a lack of work ethic or trying. It's because it's not meant to be. Um, and that is way easier said than done. And I'm sure if that ever happens to us, we would not handle it as well as I sound like we would right now. But just reminding yourself, we're just meant to be here for a little bit of time. And so we do have to find some type of peace and enjoyment out of it. That does not mean we're not going to have big swings of times where it is very stressful and nervous, but we just have to remember like what we're placed here for, and that's to be good human beings. And if farming is part of that for us, then that's wonderful. But if it's not, then we have to recognize that again, it's not for lack of trying, it's not for lack of work, it's not for lack of being smart enough. Sometimes it just doesn't work. Um,
the business is a failure, the farm is a failure, but you are not the failure.
Right.
So Kim, if I look at your business, the cost of labor and employees that you have just keeps ratcheting up and up and up, and property taxes keep going up, and interest rates and all these things. You can't control that, right? You can't control lack of employees available, what you got to pay them, and all these external forces. Those things are out of your control, right? So I don't know what are some tips that you like to share with folks.
Yeah, Monty, you asked me to be on this podcast, and now you're talking about that, and I probably am the worst person to give advice on this because, as both of you guys know, like I I feel like I'm married to that place, and that's not a bad thing. Like I have a very big servant heart, and so I want to be that person that people call when there is a problem. Um, but it, especially with the new building, having basically one of my good friends, he said basically you have 80 acres that you have to pay for now. And that is exactly what this building is costing. And so every month, like running those numbers, making sure that, things are on the up and up, just looking at those numbers every single day to make sure that you're going to be able to pay that mortgage, or you're going to be able to pay that payroll, or the taxes, all of those things. I do think that if you have a strong relationship with God, that he will provide and he will tell you what direction you need to go. And again, if I do believe that I'm put on this earth to be a veterinarian, but if his plans for me change, then that's going to be what it is. And some other veterinarian will use my building and they will love that place. But maybe I'll open a restaurant. I don't know. But whatever he leads me to do. So
Just
And
don't be going out on the road, Kim, looking for something to put in the restaurant.
uh, and to Kim's
yeah.
point, saying she's married to the veterinary building, the job, like my gosh, I feel that all the time. I was actually telling my husband the other day, like we have to find a hobby that has nothing to do with ag because my job is based within agriculture. The farm is I help on the farm, I help it harvest. We don't even know what to talk about unless it has to do with farming or agriculture. His hobby is cattle, which is farming and agriculture. I don't even know what hobbies I have anymore, and we have to find something that is not that because all of our friends farm. So what do we talk about when we're together? Farming. Where do we go on to go look at stuff when we're on vacation? We're probably driving by an equipment dealer. We went to New Orleans for Commodity Classic farming. We stopped at an equipment dealer just to look at a cotton picker to see what it looks like. Everything we do is wrapped up in it, and we need to do better about getting some type of a healthier balance between the rest of the world and what our passion is.
Guilty as charged.
Mhm.
Final thoughts while we're together here today. Speak to the listeners and how they can check their mental health and think about these things as the pressure turns up.
You can't be afraid to just talk about it. This doesn't have anything to do with farming, but um, I recently lost my dog, which as a veterinarian, you would think I would know how that feels to go through to lose your best friend that's four-legged, but I had no idea. And so when that happened, I was in a very bad place. Um, and it was people like Matt and Liz, who 2 weeks after I lost her, Matt, I was there for a preg check or doing vaccines or something, and Matt takes me out and he shows me this little calf. And he goes, "Look at the ear tag on that calf." And he had put my dog's name on the ear tag because that calf was born the same day as I lost my dog. And it's those sort of things that help you through hard times. But I wish he would have told me sooner that he did that because I felt like I was on this little island by myself, grieving, and nobody else. Now, Liz, I was supposed to go to dinner with her the night that I lost my dog. So Liz was checking in on me all the time, but it's hard. It's uncomfortable. Nobody wants to talk about their emotions. Nobody wants to reach out and say, "Hey, I see you're struggling." Liz already talked about this, but I just need to reiterate it. Like, you need to reach out to your people. If you see your people are struggling, reach out. Just say, "Hey, do you want to go to dinner? Hey, do you want to have drinks on the patio?" Like, whatever it is. But communication, knowing that other people are there for you, knowing that you're not going through it alone, man, it's powerful. So do that with your friends.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that, Kim. That's a great advice. Liz?
Yeah, kind of along those lines, just from my personal experience after the suicide, I remember people avoiding me in grocery stores, and not everybody. I had a wonderful group of family and friends that surrounded me with love. But there would be people that would avoid eye contact with you or maybe turn down the other aisle of the grocery store. And in it, it was because they didn't know how to handle the uncomfortable. And so then people would say like, "Well, how's your mother-in-law doing? I want to reach out to her, but I don't want to make her cry. I don't want to make her upset." And I would just tell them, "Look, you bringing up the fact that this happened isn't all of a sudden reminding me of this. I am in this feeling, in that sadness, grief, anger 24/7. You bringing it up doesn't all of a sudden make me cry about it. You bringing it up brings you down to my level. It brings you into my uncomfortable and shares it with me. And that is such a burden that needs to be shared. And so that's one of my biggest things is when somebody is going through a loss, a hard time, maybe they had to sell equipment, whatever. Yes, it is uncomfortable to bring it up, and you might think, "Oh, I'm ruining their day." No, their day's been ruined. They're sitting in that already. Sit with them. That's what I needed. I needed people to sit with me for 10 to 15 minutes and let me know like you're not alone in this. You can cry. I don't care how uncomfortable it made that person. They sat with me for a little bit and shared it, and that is something I wish everybody knew. Like, just talk to them, bring it up, and share the burden of the grief or the pain or the anxiety or the stress, whatever. But sharing in that we are meant to have a community, and we need to use the community for the good times, but even more so in the bad.
Well said. I think it's kind of come through, pretty clear in the podcast that the biggest problem is we're just not talking to each other. We're isolating,
Mhm.
and when we isolate, that's when things happen. So God created us as to be in community, and that's what church officially is community, not a building. And we need to be, members of that community and help each other and lift each other up and when we need it. So I certainly appreciate it. Liz will get the resources from you, and Dr. Kim will get resources to share with folks, where they can connect, learn more, how they can talk to people. Because if you listen like, I don't have a problem with that, well then great, you can be help for somebody else. So, or if you're struggling, reach out to someone, say, hey, I need some help. And but don't just be a listener, but be a doer associated with this. And because this is harvest time now, I hope that all of you do consider this and think about how you can help someone else in a mental health struggle that they might be having. Any other thoughts before we part today?
I really appreciate
No,
you
I
giving us time.
Yeah, I thank you for being on here, both of you, and yeah, keep helping others. I really appreciate it, and thank you for sharing what you've all been through. It's never easy. So we wish you the best and how you keep reaching out to others and sharing your stories and help it be a something that's understood and not something that's shamed. So really appreciate it.